The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Salem Media of Hawaii.
Welcome to Generations Radio, where the focus is on our seniors and their families. We are here each Saturday afternoon from 5 until 6 p.m., bringing you resourceful information with our radio team of professionals in the field of aging. Stay with us for the next 1 hour as we explore different ways to make life more exciting and meaningful for our extraordinary seniors. Right here on AM 690 The Answer. And now, here is our host and the publisher of Generations Magazine, Percy Ihara.
And good afternoon, Hawaii. I am not Percy. I'm his better-looking twin, Scott Spallina. I'm a writer for Generations Magazine. And Percy allows me to become the host occasionally for Generations Radio. For those of you who don't know what Generations Magazine and or Generations Radio is, get out from under the rock you're living, okay? It's a tremendous resource for all things senior related, and we all are going to grow old. Just wait till tomorrow. You're going to be a year or a day older, so it's going to come around the corner here. The primary objective of Generations Radio and Generations Magazine is to have seniors live a happy, healthy, secure life and educate the caregivers that care for them, whether it be family members, whether it be paid, whether it be friends, neighbors, whomever that care for our kapuna. It's a good resource. And speaking of resources, in August, we're having the Caregiver Conference, Aging in Place Conference, hosted by Percy Ihara's Generations Magazine at the Ala Moana Hotel. And you can find a full schedule of events for that day. I believe it's August 20th. I don't have a magazine in front of me. But you can get the Generations Magazine pretty much everywhere. You can get them at any public library. You can get them at Safeway. You can get them at kiosks. Different care homes have an issue of Generations Magazine. Now, let's say you're too lazy to get out of the house and look for that magazine. What you can do is you can use your computer and type www.generations808.com. Now, the best thing about this website is, obviously, it's free. We know how cheap some of you guys are out there, but also it has the past and current issues of Generations. Shh, don't tell anybody that. So you can read it online, and you can also listen to the past shows of Generations Radio. So those are two great benefits to going to Generations 808 website, is to get the past issues and to get the past episodes of Generations Radio. Now, Generations Radio airs at this time on Saturday from 5 to 6, and also replays on Sunday from 3 to 4. So that way, if you're listening, if you're driving around, you say, hey, this is a fantastic show. That Scott Spallina is a great host. I want to hear him again. I'm going to tell my friends and neighbors to tune in tomorrow and listen to the exact same show and laugh at the exact same jokes he's going to repeat. So I encourage you. Now, you guys are lucky enough out there to listen to this show because we have Gary Powell. That's right. We have the Gary Powell, not the Gary Powell impersonator, but the Gary Powell. Now, who's Gary Powell? For those of you that have lived underneath the rock, is the founder, president, and executive director of the Caregiver Foundation. Now, I had one of my spies do some research on Mr. Powell, and this is what he came up with. And I know Gary personally for a number of years, but by way of a general background, Gary Powell is the founder, president, and executive director of the Caregiver Foundation. The experiences he gained as a 13-year-old, 13 years serving his grandfather as a caregiver inspired him to create an organization whose mission is to provide practical and emotional support to seniors, disabled adults, and their caregivers. You can tell just by meeting Gary that this is not a job of Gary. This is a passion of his. And he's dedicated to providing seniors the best care possible. In fact, I met Gary a number of years ago when I was doing a presentation. He asked me, Scott, I know you're a big wig in the whole elder abuse thing. I want you to come to our Wahiwa caregiver support group and talk about abuse, and also share some of your experiences. And let me tell you, I stayed there, I chatted with the group for about an hour, and then I stayed the extra hour for the support group because, as some of you know, I'm a part-time caregiver for my in-laws, and I value the services Gary provides. And without further ado, here's Mr. Powell. Thank you, Gary, for joining us this afternoon.
Oh, thank you for letting me come in.
Yeah. Tell us, now, I can go on and read the pages and pages and pages of what you do here. You obviously wear many hats. Can you summarize some of the stuff you do?
Oh, that's a big question.
That is a big question. Hey, it's your show, baby. You go for it.
Well, I'll correct you. Actually, I did start caregiving at 13.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Oh, my gosh.
I used to take care of my grandfather, go to school, come home, take care of him, do my homework, get up and start it all over again.
And that was, what, like 10 years ago?
I wish. Of course, back then we didn't even call it caregiving. It was simply taking care of Grandpa.
That's right. And it was something that was expected. Right. What has changed, going off that topic here, what has changed from the good old days when it was expected that the family just pitch in automatically, as opposed to sometimes we have this atmosphere now where caring for our loved ones has become a burden? What has changed?
I think the biggest change has been our economic situation for most families. Everyone in the family seems to have one or more jobs just to pay rent and make things livable for them, and to take on the additional responsibility of someone else's finance, perhaps having to give up a job to help take care of someone. It does become a burden, and most caregivers that end up in this situation are totally unprepared for it.
And that's something we've repeated on the show a number of times, is that I can be the best lawyer, my brother-in-law could be the best electrician, my wife could be the best social worker, but when thrust into a caregiving situation, we are ill-prepared.
Very much so. I've been doing this for quite a while, and when my mother needed care a couple of years ago, I found myself unprepared, even though I spend an awful lot of my time teaching people how to prepare.
Yeah, and that's it, because we can get all this book knowledge, we can get all this teaching knowledge, but when you're down in the trenches actually caring for a loved one, you add the emotional, I wouldn't say burden, but the emotional tie, emotional investment of being a caregiver as well. And that makes it, I think, all the more draining.
It is. When you say the emotional burden, that is the way society looks at it now. Where we used to take care of our families as part of the living process. You know, we take care of our babies, we take care of our kids, we take care of our loved ones, and we used to take care of those who would be checking out at some point. But now, almost everything you read or hear refers to the aging probability of loss of income, loss of privilege, loss of ability, the tsunami of aging. It seems like every reference is a negative reference.
Yeah, and again, I think that you've hit the nail on the head with respect to the price of paradise, as we say here, in that no longer, as our parents and grandparents did, live a life that allowed them to comfortably care for their aged parents, because today's lifestyle is, well, unfortunately, a lot of us are living paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of us, unfortunately, can't meet those burdens of trying to live in Hawaii. So then we start doubling up our housing. We start making the Ohana housing. We have the kids staying with us longer. We have whomever living. And then when we're thrust into a caregiver situation, that becomes very stressful.
It does. We do a workshop throughout the community called The Psychology of Caring. And it's not an easy workshop for most caregivers because it's designed to help them confront the emotions and the feelings that they have. For instance, when someone is feeling that their father is now a burden to them, they immediately begin feeling guilty about feeling that it's a burden.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. And again, we're talking to Gary Powell from the Caregiver Support Group or Caregiver Foundation, and he can be reached at 808 625 3782. Again, that's 808 625 3782. You're listening to Generations Radio, The Answer. And we're going to be giving out that number again later on the thing. But, Gary, I think you hit the nail on the head in that you don't want to feel guilty caring for a loved one. But that's an emotion that does creep into people's lives. And then they start doubting. It's like, okay, I love mom, I love dad, but she can be a pain, especially if she has, like, let's say, Alzheimer's. And it's Alzheimer's month coming up. And there's been a lot of focus on Alzheimer's, and it's a devastating ailment. And especially if someone has a disabled parent, or especially if someone's very dependent and you're caring for that person there, you feel guilty. You get the sense of resentment, of burden, and then you want to kind of like shove those negative emotions down into you, saying, wait a minute, I'm the son, I'm the daughter, I should be doing this. How come I'm feeling such hostility? And I think that by you saying that you confront those emotions, I'm sure that's a big relief to a lot of people.
I think it is. One of the best things that a caregiver can do is to join a caregiver support group. There are several different organizations that sponsor them around the island. We have several. But it allows you a time to be with other caregivers who actually do know what caregiving is all about.
Yeah, and it's not a sign of weakness. I mean, that's one thing that I think a lot of people are concerned about, saying, wait a minute, I can do this. I can suck it up. I'm a man, or I'm a strong woman, and I can be a caregiver. I don't need any help. I don't want to admit any sort of negative feelings because I'm strong. But I have gone to several of these meetings, and let me tell you, it not only gives you a break from being a caregiver, but the camaraderie, the support, the sharing of resources afterwards makes your job a lot easier. Quit being a hardhead, people. If you're in a situation where you're finding yourself a caregiver and you need help, don't be afraid to seek Gary and his crew and go to one of these meetings, because, again, the knowledge that you'll gain from this will make you and the person you're caring for in a much better situation.
I think attending a support group is actually a sign of real strength.
I think it is, yes.
Because caregiving doesn't always mean you giving the care. It's you knowing how to know the care is actually provided. So some of us have financial resources and can hire professional help to come in and provide care. We're still caregivers. Some of us live far, far away from our loved ones and cannot physically be there to take care, but we are still caregivers.
And that's one thing that, and let's say you're driving around out there and you're thinking, okay, my mom and dad, they're in good health right now. I don't have to worry about being a caregiver. Let me tell you something. Being a caregiver is something you don't ease into. Being a caregiver, unfortunately, for a great many people, is something that's thrust upon you. Because without proper long-term care insurance, without proper planning, whether it be estate planning or getting reverse mortgages set up, whatever like that, when mom or dad slips and falls and breaks a hip, when mom or dad get diagnosed with something that's going to dramatically change their lives, guess whose lives is also going to change? It's going to change yours and your family's. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you guys. I'm saying this because I'm living through it right now. People become caregivers because it's something thrust upon them. When mom or dad slips and falls, let's say, immediately you become a caregiver. You don't get a chance to say, like, okay, I'm going to study to become a caregiver. I'm going to take these classes. I'm going to graduate with my caregiving degree, and then I'll be a good caregiver for my mom and dad. No. On the way to the hospital after a slip and fall, you need to start thinking immediately. You become a caregiver instantly. As soon as their butt bone hits the ground and they break something, you're a caregiver immediately. That's how fast you can find yourself in the role of a caregiver. And we had somebody from Kaponopono over at the Mediation Center of the Pacific the other week, Tracy Wilkin, and what they do is they go through a whole laundry list of things you need to start thinking about. And I've been doing part-time caregiving for a number of years for my in-laws, as I said before, and the list she has is comprehensive. And I'm sure that Gary and his support groups, they go through something similar. And even to this day, we're still learning things. So it's so easy to become overwhelmed. And then when you're overwhelmed, you become stressed and you make poor decisions. And that's, I think, the true value of the Caregiver Foundation, is to avoid you making mistakes that you'll regret later on.
It's so important for us as caregivers to realize when we are not capable of providing care. Not all of us can be effective caregivers directly, and being honest with ourselves about that is vitally important.
Well, I mean, like what Clint Eastwood said in Dirty Harry movies, a guy's got to know his limitations.
Exactly.
And I think that people have to know their limitations. And by the way, that's a lousy Clint Eastwood thing. I apologize to any Clint Eastwood professional impersonators out there. But a person has to know their limitations. There's not that many supermen and superwomen that can do it on their own. And that's why the prosecutor's office elder abuse unit encourages people to seek help, encourages people to use the resources like Gary, like the Caregiver Foundation. Gary, what services do you provide? Let's say, who would be your typical person that would seek you out?
Typical person. That's rather hard to think of a typical person. I guess the most common phone call I get is from a caregiver who has already reached the point of stressing and doesn't know where to go.
Okay.
Doesn't even know what questions really to ask. And then we're able to work with that person, uncover what resources there are, what the real needs are, try to guide them into developing a care plan.
And it's amazing that, because you and I, we go to a lot of the senior fairs out there, whether it be at the Blaisdell, whether it be events hosted by AARP or Better Business Bureau. I see you all the time with your information booth, and I'm there as well. And it's amazing how I have caregivers coming to me, and they've been caring for someone for years, not realizing when they first come to one of these resource fairs that there's all these services available. So they basically have been doing a Herculean task by themselves without realizing that there are resources like the Caregiver Foundation. And that just blows me away, because imagine all those nights, all those long weekends, all those times that they've had to care for mom or dad by themselves or with their spouse, not realizing that there's help out there for them.
There are tons of resources in Hawaii. It's a little difficult to coordinate them all unless you do it like I do full-time and are constantly discovering different resources that are available. I guess the most common comment that I get from people at these fairs is, where were you 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Really?
Or one year ago? Why didn't I know about you?
And that's it. Why didn't someone know about it? That's one thing that I think Percy Ihara, the publisher of Generations magazine, he has realized that. And I met him in 2008, and everything was still in its infancy back then, but through the efforts of Generations Radio that you're listening to now, through the efforts of his magazine, he's trying to educate the public. He's trying to bring key players to the forefront, key players highlighted in his magazine and on this show here, like yourself, to educate the public that if you're a caregiver out there, if you're being cared by your son or daughter or any family member, and you feel that they're being stressed, that maybe your relative that's caring for you is maybe short-tempered, is tired, maybe not treating you the best that they can be treating you, and you're thinking like, oh boy, junior boy, he's so upset with me these days. That person is under stress. And I know that as someone that's in your situation, you're trying best to not be a burden to your children, but because of age or disability or what that, you need the help. Make the phone call. Make the phone call to Gary, because a caregiver doesn't have to call up Gary. Anybody in a situation like that, because you might be helping your son or daughter that's any stressful situation. I know you don't mean to be a burden or stressful and stuff like that on your children, but just the mere fact that that's something else they have to do, it can create stress. And I think that stress is a killer. Stress does age somebody. Stress does give them physical ailments. And I think it's vitally important that you don't live with the stress. You go to the support group. And again, if you're out there, I'm going to repeat this number again to the Caregiver Foundation. It's 625-3782. Again, that's 625-3782. And I encourage you to write that number down and maybe talk to your children and say, listen, I know that sometimes it's difficult caring for me, or I know sometimes it's difficult caring for mom or for grandma or grandpa. We appreciate what you're doing. We want to make sure that you can live your life as normal as possible or without the much stress that we're adding to you. Please go to maybe one of these caregiver support groups. Please take care of yourself as well, because you can't help anybody unless you help yourself first.
That's very good advice, Scott.
Okay, now some of the other hats you wear. Because I'm sure right now a lot of people are thinking, okay, so all Gary does is he hosts these meetings, they have cold coffee and stale pastries. What else goes on over there?
We provide a fairly wide range of support services for seniors and disabled adults and caregivers. Everything from managing finances all the way through complete care coordination and cooperation with the courts if that's necessary.
Yeah, now, okay. Now, what do you mean by cooperation with the courts? Let's back up a little bit there. How do the courts become involved in this whole thing?
Well, there's usually two ways. Either a family member has taken another family member to court over some care issue. It's more often over an estate issue.
Okay.
Or the Adult Protective Service has determined that somebody is not able to care for themselves and there is no other responsible party to care for them. In those cases, we often will agree with the situation and say, we do have the resources and the expertise to step in, act as guardian, act as conservator, act as trustee, and try to make sure that this senior or this disabled adult is cared for properly and really receives the attention they deserve.
Now, by way of background here, when you're talking about Adult Protective Services, there's a state agency through the Department of Health, and their responsibility is to care for vulnerable and disabled adults. And basically, they're like the CPS, but for vulnerable, disabled adults. And if, let's say, your neighbor is a hoarder or your neighbor has self-neglect issues that you're concerned about, you can give Adult Protective Services a call. And it sounds to me like the Caregiver Foundation is somebody that maybe the Adult Protective Services would say, okay, this person can't care for themselves. Let's give Gary a call, and maybe they can help with the caring of this individual. Basically be like a guardian to this person.
Yes, that's correct.
And that means that not only does the Adult Protective Services trust you to become a caregiver of this person, or a guardian of this person, I should say, but also the state of Hawaii, through the court system, has deemed you to be reliable enough to become a guardian.
Yes.
Because I imagine they don't like take any Tom, Dick, or Harry to say, okay, you can take care of this old person or like that.
Well, we certainly hope not.
We certainly hope not. Okay. And so we're talking to Gary Powell, the founder, president, and executive director of the Caregiver Foundation, and you are listening to Generations Radio, which can be heard every Saturday and replayed on Sunday on this station, 690 AM, The Answer. And if you're listening to us on Saturday, you're listening to us from 5 to 6 p.m., and it will be replayed on Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m., and it will be archived, documented, kept for your listening enjoyment on the website, on generations808.com website, where not only can you hear this show and all the past shows, but you can also read the past and current issues of Generations Magazine, which is a free publication that is a tremendous resource. And they will be sponsoring a caregiver conference in August at the Ala Moana Hotel. There'll be over either I want to say 60 vendors, exhibitors out there, plus all day talking. Gary, are you going to be at this one, the Aging in Place conference?
Yes, we will.
Yeah, I always see you there. That's why I was asking there. Are you going to have any good freebies to give away? Everybody likes the freebies there.
The freebies that we give away are really good pieces of advice.
Oh, they want candy. Let me tell you, I go through pounds and pounds of candy at these things here, and everybody always says like, "Oh, you're don't you have sugar free?" No, I don't have sugar free candy. Get away from me. It's not a lunch buffet. Anyways, okay, we're going to be taking our break at the bottom of the hour, and we'll come back after the break, and we'll talk more to Gary Powell at the Caregiver Foundation, and we'll talk about what other hats Gary wears.
From Generations Radio. If you have any questions or want to be part of our discussion, give us a call at 296-5467. That's 296-5467. This is Generations Radio on AM 690 The Answer.
Did you know 26 million Americans have kidney disease and most don't know it?
The day I was diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I called the National Kidney Foundation, and the young lady who answered stayed on the phone with me and walked me through step by step. She too was surviving kidney disease, and she showed me there could be life after kidney disease.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
Moon Physical Therapy is here to help you back to recovery. Moon Physical Therapy is located on Ward Avenue across from Sports Authority. Physician prescribed for motor vehicle accidents, workman's comp, or that body pain that comes from rushing to play without warming up. Also event cardiopulmonary rehabilitation with our one-on-one patient care. Moon's Aquatherapy heated endless pool allows for low-impact exercise with less pain on land. We will give you the right exercises to get you back to health. Ask your doctor to prescribe Moon Physical Therapy. Moon Physical Therapy. We achieve results.
Aloha, this is Martha Clopin.
And Al Harrington. Choosing the right Medicare plan not only saves you money, it also helps you avoid headaches and heartaches down the road.
We want to remind everyone
to listen to a Medicare Moment with Martha, Sundays from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we help answer important questions on Medicare so you can stay healthy, wealthy, and wise all year long.
Call me at 543-2073, 543-2073.
I was an addict from the age of 13. I finally decided it was time for a change. I walked into the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center, and that got me ready for the real world. Now, I choose to be guided by Jesus Christ, and today, I'm building a powerful and promising future, free from drugs and alcohol.
Please shop at the Salvation Army family stores. With our discounted sales, your support through your purchase helps men live a clean, sober, and productive life.
Got Vegas on your mind? Get Vacations Hawaii on the line. Vacations Hawaii offers weekly 4- and 5-night Honolulu to Vegas packages, which include 3 meals daily from $6.99. Stay at Hawaii's favorite casinos, California, Fremont, Main Street Station, and Orleans Hotel. Vacations Hawaii will get you there in comfort on deluxe wide-body 767 planes with complimentary in-flight hot meal service. Vacations Hawaii's frequent flyer program gives you future travel discounts and credits. So if you're ready to win big, call Vacations Hawaii at 591-4777 or visit PointVacationsHawaii.com.
Today, more than ever, we local people are living longer than any other state in the Union, with more seniors, baby boomers, and caregivers. Generations Radio promotes the importance to be proactive as we all age. The radio team will focus on issues facing our seniors and their families, finding resources to navigate healthy aging along with financial, legal, and caregiving information. So join Percy E. Howard from 5 until 6 each Saturday, right here on AM 690 The Answer. Focusing on the issues facing our seniors and their families today. Here's our Generations Radio host, Percy Ihara.
Afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen of Hawaii. My name is not Percy. My name is Scott Spallina. I'm a writer for his magazine, Generations. And I do, my article is, they say the best for last. my article is usually on the last page of Generations Magazine, and I talk about elder abuse. I'm in charge of the elder abuse unit at the prosecutor's office. But occasionally, though, they let me out of the cell that I'm in over there to host the Generations radio show that you're listening to right now on 690 The Answer. If you're listening to us on Saturday, you're probably listening to us from 5 to 6, and it's going to be replayed for your listening enjoyment on Sunday from 3 to 4. And if you really, really like us, you can go ahead and make a mixtape for your girlfriend about our show, and you can use the website, generations808.com, to get past episodes of Generations as well as the magazine. Now, I keep on talking about this Generations magazine. This is a publication that comes out every other month. It's a tremendous resource. It has a chock full of good information about healthy living, living smarter, healthier, wiser, prettier. It has recipes. It has financial advice. It has caregiving tips. It has everything you want to know. If you're over the age of 18, you'll be interested in something in that magazine. If you're under the age of 18, go back to reading your comic books. I encourage everybody to pick up a free copy, because you can get them for free, at your local library, hospitals, care homes, big city diners. Just pick one up. Trust me, you'll like it. And if you see me on the street, I'll be more than happy to autograph it. And then you can sell it on eBay, and there's your retirement all saved up right there. We are fortunate today to have Gary Powell, and I know that the people that have been listening to the show so far this afternoon, they're on the edge of their seat because Gary's so gripping in what he's talking about. And I had to say, Gary, your voice is kind of low. You sound like Barry White. So let's go ahead and try to keep that voice up there a little bit there. Don't give us your crooner voice there, your Velvet Fog voice. And let's talk more about Caregiving Foundation. And what we were saying before we left at the bottom of the hour was that Adult Protective Services goes to you when there's a senior in need, goes to you when someone has been declared incapable of caring for themselves. And they say, Gary, we need your help. You have proven yourself over the years to be a reputable person running a reputable company to help kapunas in need. Now, when you get a call from APS and the court says, you know what, we agree with APS that Gary's a good guy and he can care for these people. What's your responsibilities, Gary, when you care for somebody in need?
It depends on the level that the court has, I guess they use the term awarded. If it's a conservatorship situation, that usually has to do with a person's assets and managing those assets for that individual's benefit. If it's a guardianship, sometimes it will include the financial assets, but it is more focused on the individual's actual physical care, physical and emotional care. So making sure a person has an adequate place to live.
And that does not mean that you'd actually take this person home with you.
No, I don't take this person home with me. But we do a pretty good job finding either a community home or a foster home, care facility, whatever might be appropriate. And sometimes it does work out to have the family provide some of the care.
Now, how would that situation be? Because basically for a person to become awarded to you, for lack of a better term, put on your care, hasn't the court already determined that the family members are incapable of caring for that person?
Usually.
Okay.
Sometimes they feel that the family members simply need oversight.
Oh, I see. Okay. And so you'll be the one, or someone in your organization will be the one directing the family member to, hey, maybe you should make this a safer place, get some bars, take this person to the doctor. What would be your responsibilities if you were to be collaborative with the family?
If the family was working with us, then we would create a care plan that involved every aspect of that individual's life, the person that receives the care's life. So, as you said, renovating things in the home, that's a very important thing. Making sure that the individual is receiving the proper type of medical care, has adequate transportation so they're not trapped at home. just looking out for the best interest of that kupuna.
Okay. Now, this is fantastic. I mean, this is a great resource, and we talked about how my family is in a caregiving situation with my in-laws, and I know many callers that have called me at the office saying, Scott, things are about to explode or things are deteriorating rapidly. In order for us to use the Caregiver Foundation for those services you just articulated to our listeners, do we have to be under a court mandate?
No. Very often we are thankful that we're called in by the family that realizes things aren't going well, and we better step aside and get some professional help in here to figure out how to do a better job. And we really applaud that.
Okay. For those of you who just took a nap in the last 10 seconds, let me summarize how important what Gary said is. If you are caring for a loved one, if you are a loved one being cared for by family members, and you see things are slowly spiraling out of control or rapidly spiraling out of control, and you don't want to get the court involved, you don't want your neighbor to call APS because they hear your son yelling at you for not bathing properly or whatever like that, Gary is the person to call to kind of head that judicial train before it reaches the station of your house. Because, as they say, an ounce of prevention, a little bit of education is going to be worth a pound of cure, or avoid any of the government intervention into the home life. Is that correct?
That is. We utilize things like mediation of the Center of the Pacific to, help facilitate some of these situations. Scott, probably the first problem that families come up with is financial.
Yes. I mean, it's huge. I mean, the finance is probably the number one because, again, we were talking about earlier in the show, it's so expensive growing old. It's doubly expensive growing old in Hawaii. It's triply expensive growing old in Hawaii and needing care.
Absolutely. And families don't always agree with each other.
Oh, my gosh. Do you hear that, ladies and gentlemen out there? You're not going to agree with brother boy or sister girl when you're caring for mom and dad because everybody's a know-it-all. Let me tell you from experience, and everybody has their own opinion on how to care for somebody, and it gets crazy out there.
And God help you if you're the one handling mom's checkbook. Because one of the calls you're going to get is, what are you doing with mom's money?
You're 100% right in that because as the head of the elder abuse unit at the prosecutor's office, that's my number one call I get from the public is, I think my sister is stealing from my parents. I think my brother has a drug problem and is spending all my parents' money and stuff like that. Because the person that has the checkbook, they're under so much scrutiny and they might think that, okay, we need to do this kind of treatment where the sibling might say, oh, no, mom's going to die anyway soon. We don't need to buy this or we don't need to pay for this. Save the money for later. And they'll give me a call saying that the sister's being reckless with the money or spending it or taking the trip to Disneyland and stuff like that. It gets ugly.
One of the ways that we help with that is we have a daily money management service where we'll actually take control of the assets, the income, pay the bills from our office. In other words, take the financial aspect of care out of the family's hands. It's amazing how much conflict stops just with that one service.
I see that. I mean, that's crazy simple. And for those of you out there in this situation, think about that. As you guys are around the dinner table arguing, it's going to be either about money or about care. And when it's about money, it's going to go back and forth because everybody's right on this and everybody's wrong on this. So imagine if you get a financial expert like the Caregiver Foundation that is a neutral party that's not siding with one party or the other, but they're siding for the individual that needs care. Imagine that responsibility, that topic, that bone of contention off the table to where then the family can just focus on the care of the loved ones without all the drama that money brings.
Sometimes the family comes to us and they say, well, You're handling the finances. That's really good. We really appreciate that. But we're not agreeing with each other on what kind of care mom needs.
And that's a tough one.
That's a tough one. But we do have complete care coordination service where we can actually make sure that mom is receiving the appropriate care in the appropriate location. You know, so many people, I'll use my own parents, they don't like the idea of ever leaving their home.
Right. That's huge. That's huge there.
It's a big deal.
Yes.
Home might not always work, though. And for a lot of families, the care that's given at home is so substandard because they do not have the resources that the community home might have or the facility might have. And as a consequence, mom or dad becomes trapped in that home. Nobody comes to see them anymore. They can't get out on their own. And their life has become boxed in by those walls.
Yeah, and you and I know, have gone to these people's homes. They might be hoarders. They might have deteriorated in their hygiene so much that there's food trash, there's all this trash. You're like stepping over piles. You see the pet rats running all around. Wee. And I mean, even the cat is like afraid of the big old rats now. And it's a situation that the family has washed their hands in, saying, Mom, we love you, but I can't bring my kids over there. I mean, it's dangerous over there. And they almost want to wash their hands of it, even though they care for their parents. And the services that the Caregiver Foundation provides, whether it be through intervention with the court system APS or the smart family members realizing their limitations, giving you a call, can help somebody in that situation.
Exactly.
Now, I know that one of the services that you can help coordinate is, let's say we get a hoarding situation. We get somebody in a hoarding situation and say, you know what, Gary, we want to go over there and help mom and dad, but I'm not physically active enough to climb over the refrigerator blocking her door, and I'm not like rappelling down her front lawn to like go through the piles of stuff like that. I don't have the hazmat suits to walk over the meat trays. Can you help somebody with that grody duty of helping somebody in a hoarding situation?
Yes, we can. Hoarding cleanup is a somewhat specialized area in that it's not just cleaning.
No, it's not.
You have to have the ability to discern what is precious, what is important, and what actually can be gotten rid of without dramatically affecting the individual.
And it is, let me tell you, and I know this from personal experience. I've helped individuals with a hoarding situation, and it's one thing to get the dump truck to start loading things up and all that kind of stuff, but you're also dealing with the psychological, the emotional effect of the person that hoarded that. It's not like they wake up one day and say, okay, I'm tired of this mess, help me clean it up. No, they don't realize the living situation they're in. We should have a whole show on hoarding. It'd be fascinating here. They don't realize how emotionally attached they are to their treasures, their memories, and the stuff they've accumulated that has made it so much so that they can no longer care for themselves. You just simply can't throw it away. I mean, how do you deal with the psychological effect of cleaning up a hoarding situation?
Well, we strongly encourage anybody that's going to work in a hoarding situation to tie on a psychologist.
Yes.
It's really, really important. You can't just say, Mom, don't keep those containers. You don't need that many containers. She's keeping them for a reason. It may be that she's not able to handle so much loss in her life, and by keeping things, she feels that she has some more control over her destiny. There's a lot involved in helping the individual. Most people can go in with a dump truck and shovels, and
that's the easy part.
That's the easy part.
Quite honestly, and I've done it. That's the easy part, and it's
it'll
almost
come right
cathartic
back
to like get the truck. I've gone to the dump like over 20 times. I have dumped thousands of bags, contractor bags full of stuff from hoarding situations. That's the easy part. Dealing with the person that you're helping to clean up their house, that's the hard part. And that's something I can't deal with because I'm impatient and I have a drinking problem. So I'm not going to deal with that kind of stuff. I need to have somebody there helping psychologically with dealing with the emotional fallout of cleaning up a situation.
You know, aging is a series of losses. And when you compound that with people start taking your stuff away, that's an even greater loss because it's so visible. So it's really, really important for families that are dealing with hoarding to seek outside help, either for advice or actually for undertaking the job. We meet with the fellow that produces the hoarding TV show once a year and
really
talk about our situation and learn from him because that's all he does.
Now,
very interesting guy.
Okay, now, are local hoarders different from mainland hoarders?
Not really.
Not really?
No.
Okay.
It's amazing the common types of things that are hoarded. Seems like everybody likes yogurt cups.
I was about to say, like, is it like Spam musubi or Spam cans out here as opposed to rice-a-roni boxes in the mainland? I mean, I would assume there would be some difference there.
Well, of course, product-specific differences. But, one of the things that is very similar throughout the entire nation is the hoarding of things that arrive in the mail, usually from sweepstakes or from TV show sales or things like that, where a senior has gotten into almost an addiction of acquiring things. And they never open the boxes. They just pile up along with most of their mail.
And I think that goes with the hope that seniors have, the hope that they have that they can still provide for their children, a legacy for their children, as well as what you were saying before, and that during the aging process, there's a realization that there's a loss. There's a realization that there's more limitations on that person. And perhaps the hope of a financial gain, perhaps the hope of financial independence can bring back some of that confidence that the senior may feel they're losing.
We've all seen seniors that have been swindled. Yes. I'm sure your office sees far more than we do. But there are even legitimate organizations that will exploit the memory issues that seniors have in constantly sending them advertisements for interesting-looking things and getting them into programs where they're expecting to win something, or just advertising these amazing products on television. And one of the things that seniors feel they do have control over is their checkbook.
And that's one thing that's sad, in that not only is it the illegitimate or illegal businesses that prey on seniors, but also the legitimate businesses that are just hard sellers. And I made the mistake one time of trying to refinance our house with a mainland company. They were crazy hostile. I mean, they were like stalking me. I mean, every time I woke up, I'd get the phone call. I felt like I was on GPS satellite tracking or whatever like that. They were crazy in hunting me down. I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is a legitimate company also. And I can imagine that when you have a senior, especially with memory issues, it can be devastating if they're on a fixed income. And most often, we've learned at the prosecutor's office elder abuse unit, oftentimes they don't report it. Have you run into a situation where APS is involved and they say, Gary, we need your organization to be a guardian or be a conservator for this person because this is a situation, and then you get in there and you realize that it's much, much worse?
Almost everyone.
Really?
Nobody likes to admit they've made a mistake. And when a senior realizes that they've either been defrauded, sent money off to Jamaica or something, and all of those wonderful promises have turned out to be totally false, they don't want to admit it. It's embarrassing. So they will just hide the fact that they don't have any money this month. They gave it all away. And then things begin to just compound for them. And it gets worse and worse and worse.
And then that's one thing that I think this hour that we're drawing to a close pretty soon is about communication. We've been talking about communication and just how important it is to communicate, not only to communicate within the family and helping the kapuna get the best care possible, communicate with the caregivers to let them know that it's okay to get some help, because no one expects you to know everything about caregiving. And don't place that burden on yourself that you're an instant expert when it comes to caregiving, because You're not. That's the reality. You're not an expert. You don't know everything. Communication of going to a support group that's offered by the Caregiver Foundation. Give them a call at 625-3782. Again, that's 625-3782 to go there. They're tremendous resources. They're trusted by the state. They're trusted by the court system to help people that need help. You can go there even before it gets to a critical level to where the state jumps in there and says, you know what, family, you're doing an awful job. We're taking away that responsibility. No. You can seek out Gary and the Caregiver Foundation before it reaches that. If you are a kapuna being cared for by your loved ones and you see how tiring it is to your son or daughter, you see how short they are now with you or with each other. Maybe there's more yelling in the house. Maybe they're more drinking or less sleep or whatever like that, and you're seeing these changes that they don't see in themselves. Give Gary a call, because you don't want your children to resent them loving you. You don't want your children to be in a situation where they might do something stupid and succumb to caregiver stress and make a decision that they'll regret the rest of their lives. So please seek out the help, the resources that Gary Powell can provide with the Caregiver Foundation. Gary, before we leave, do you have any last thoughts?
For those of you who have not begun your journey of caregiving, get together with your family and begin asking, what if? What if you can't tell me what you want? What if you need to have a care home? What if? Ask the hard questions and get the family working together before it comes up.
And be realistic. Be realistic, okay? Because when someone says, oh, I can do everything, no. They may think they can because they're talking through ignorance. But Gary's had decades of experience helping people in this situation. He can help with, you know what? You might think you can, and God bless you that you think you can, but the reality is it's going to take a toll. And you may not see it today, you may not see it tomorrow, you may not see it for months and months or even a year or so, but the toll it will take will last a lifetime. And when your journey of being a caregiver is over with, you want to have cherished memories. You want to be able to look back and say, I gave mom and dad the best care imaginable. You don't want to look back and say, gosh, I wish I could have done better, or gosh, I regret how I treated everybody during that. I was just too stressed out. And by going to seek help, by going to get the resources, by going to better yourself as a caregiver to help you love your person you're caring for better, that's something you can be proud of, and that's something that you'll have good memories of when you finish your caregiving journey. You are listening to Generations Radio. You can hear us every Saturday and Sunday, and you can listen to us at generations808.com. Thank you for joining us this weekend, and we hope to see you, or I guess hear from you next weekend as well. Thank you very much.